man. I'm good. I don't like scary movies at all. Hey, everybody, this is Fernando from the Rollback Podcast. I know what you're thinking. I already put out an episode this week with Eddie doing Blade 2. Well, guess what? I'm the motherfucking president around here, and what I say goes. We are doing 2 this week. 1 for Blade 2, and then this one for one of my personal favorite scary movies, slasher movies out there that scared the absolute piss out of me as a kid. Scream. This movie was the renaissance of Wes Craven because at the time he was kind of in the middle of the road. His movie started to suck. All he was really writing on at this point was the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, and at this point he had just released A New Nightmare, which was considered a better sequel to the countless Nightmare on Elm Streets that came out after the first one. But yeah, this one was pretty much his resurgence into the horror franchise. And it's weird to think that a man like Wes Craven needed a resurgence, because, I mean, when you think of horror, you think of very few names. You think of John Carpenter, and you think of Wes Craven. I guess you want to lump in George Romero with the zombie movies. That's fine. Fair play. But for me, I mean, when it comes to horror, it's pretty much just Wes Craven that I think of. And fuck, man, this movie as a kid scared the absolute piss out of me. You know, when this movie came out, I'm pretty sure it's because of this movie that I hated going to the bathroom as a kid. Every time I went to the bathroom, I had to open up that shower curtain, and I expected for Ghostface to be standing behind that curtain, ready to murder me. I know what you're thinking. That's stupid. Well, you know what, man? Fuck you. That shit scared me as a kid. I don't need this right now. But no, in all honesty, this movie, it wasn't really considered that. It wasn't really like hyped up in the very beginning when it came out. It wasn't that hyped up. From what I read, even like the first weekend, it didn't do so great. But then once word of mouth started happening, the movie really just fucking took off. And it's kind of crazy because, I mean, the slasher films kind of became a joke at this point. In the 90s, they kind of been overplayed at this point. I mean, in the 80s, you had Halloween, you had Friday the 13th, you had Nightmare on Elm Street, you had the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies. And they just kind of got played out. I mean, at that point in time, it was pretty much just over with. But I think horror is one of those genres that it never really dies. It just waits for that one little renaissance moment where it is recuperated by a film. Any film. I mean, you could look at it now in the sense of Paranormal Activity. That took the horror genre, flipped it on its head. They just took a simple concept of a house being haunted, and they filmed it for like $10,000, and they made fucking millions out of it. Blair Witch Project took the concept of a horror movie, and they flipped it on its head. They turned it into a found footage movie, and at the time, people were like, what the fuck, man? Is this real? Is this real? Like, they're playing like this is real. And I think at one point, the director had to produce the actors because I think people thought that it was so real that they took him to court. I might be wrong. This might be just bullshit. So please don't hate me for it. And if you have any complaints, I'll put Eddie's address in the description below. He's not here to say what I can and cannot say. He might be the HR rep, but I am my own man here, people. And what I say goes. So yes, back to the movie. So the movie Scream starred David Arquette, Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, Matthew Lillard, Rose McGowan, Skeet Ulrich, and Drew Barrymore, which I think is kind of an overstatement since Drew Barrymore dies in the very beginning of the movie. So this movie played the old trickaroo on us with Drew Barrymore dying in the very beginning because at the time, believe it or not, Drew Barrymore was a big deal and she was probably the biggest name in the movie. So when she went kaput, she kind of threw the movie on its head because no one fucking thought that would happen. And so it kind of made the movie free game. I mean, this movie, it's funny because it's the only horror movie that I could think of that acknowledges the idea of a slasher movie. I mean, we have that iconic scene with Jamie Kennedy where it's the party scene at the very end. You know how party scenes always go well in slasher flicks. And he starts explaining the rules of a slasher film. And it's funny because, like, you never saw slasher movies acknowledge how ridiculous they were. And for this movie to do this, it was pretty crazy. So, yeah, again, like, this movie was a complete renaissance for horror at the time. I think complete renaissance is a little much. It wasn't a complete renaissance. It was a small renaissance, but it helped keep that sputtering engine of horror movies going. So at the time, this movie, I mean, I'm trying to really think. At the time, it was I Know What You Did Last Summer, Scream, Urban Legend was another one that came out around this time. There's a lot of teen slasher films. Not so much like an entity, like a Freddy Krueger, Michael Myers, a Jason Voorhees. It was more so realistic. I assume they just wanted to make it more realistic at this point. Yes, we're going to have a slasher, but we want to make it realistic. So, I believe Scream was the one to take that concept and then kind of introduce it to the main audience. But yeah, back to Scream. This movie, the thing I always liked that it did identify that it is a slasher film, and here are the rules. The rules in Scream were you can never have sex, you can never drink or do drugs, and you can never say, "I'll be right back." But the smart thing, even though the sequels weren't loved as much as the first one, I still like them regardless. I like trashy horror movies. The rules changed to account for the fact that they were sequels. Like the death scenes has to be more elaborate, and you can never really assume that the killer was dead. And then if you get that third movie, the killer is superhuman. The whole thing that the main characters can die, it's done. Anyone can die. It is all fair game. And it's funny because, I mean, at the end of the day, all these rules are broken. And so, yeah, like, this movie, it's funny because it does, like, identify those little rules that we would see in these horror movies at the time. And right now I'm looking at, like, lists of horror movies from 96 to 99. And so, dude, like, there's not many good horror movies in here. And I don't even think I would consider most of them horror movies. Like, Pinocchio's Revenge is, oh, Jesus Christ. Poltergeist Legacy, that was another one that just got sequel after sequel, and everyone was pretty much just tired of it. And then you get Scream in 1996. After Scream, Tales from the Crypt presents Bordello of Blood, Thinner, Tremors 2, I don't know how that's a horror movie. Trilogy of Terror 2, The Uninvited, Vampirella, Witchcraft 8, Salem's Ghost. Jesus. Yeah, so at the time, horror, like, really was just at a downfall. And that's just 96. In 97, you see movies like Alien Resurrection, Anaconda, The Creeps, Cupid, The Devil's Advocate. Don't think that's a horror movie. You see another, I think the biggest one that year was I Know What You Did Last Summer. Another guilty pleasure horror movie for myself. I love that movie, even though the characters in it are absolutely morons. You get Scream 2. Skeletons. It's another good one. Troublesome Night. Twist of Terror. Wishmaster. And that's 97. 98. Nothing. Bride of Chucky, you see that resurgence. The Chucky movies was another movie franchise that just kind of went downhill really quick. I say that happened after. You know what? I'll do a Child's Play one eventually, and I gotta say, I don't hate the first 3 Chucky movies that much. The one I remember fondly is the third one, because I remember I was more at the age where you can remember that one. So, you know what? I don't hate that one that much. That one gets a pass. But yeah, you get, in 97, you get, 98, you get Halloween H2O. I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. Another sequel, and then you get the Dum Dum characters. The Psycho remake. Japan starts pumping out Ring, huh? That's something that we're going to see later on in the future. Urban Legends. That's another one. But yeah, like, I don't want to go off on a tangent about, like, horror movies of the late 90s. But yeah, so this movie really rejuvenated the slasher genre and kind of gave us slasher films that we could enjoy again. Because I believe in the 80s, like, slasher films were far more enjoyed. They were far more scary. Now you look back at them and you're like, man, these people are fucking morons. But, I mean, back in the day, you look at them and you're like, you're genuinely terrified. Because it was something new at the time that you hadn't really seen before. And that's what Scream did. They took that slasher genre and then they made it fucking terrifying for people. Because, one, it was set in a more real universe where people were, like, just dumb kids. And then, next thing you know, they are fighting another person who's a person, not an entity or anything like that. It is a physical person. So, I believe that's why I did that. And this movie is... I really look back at these early 2000s, late 90s movies with such awe because, yeah, I told this to Eddie that these movies, it's funny because, like, granted, I think horror movies get a little bit more, like, leeway, but it was made for 14 to 15 million. And then the box office came in at 173 million. So it was a very big success. But yeah, like with horror movies now, I mean, you think about how far it's come. So it switched from slasher films to paranormal stuff. And then you kind of see some slasher films get tossed into the mix. But it's a lot of like now in horror, it's a lot of found footage stuff. The Saw kind of changed up the game a little bit, but I mean, none of them have like the. I want to find the word for it. It's like you know it's bad, but god damn it, do you love it? And that's what this movie has. Like, you know it's bad, You know, and I'm not saying it's not a bad movie. I love the beats of this movie. Like, it hits on all cylinders. But like, it's a slasher flick. It's candy. It is candy for your brain. And like, you look at it and you're just like, man, this movie just has that that spunk. It has that spunk. And for me, like, I fucking love this movie. The cast is amazing in this movie as well. I want to talk about the cast really quickly. So at the time, yeah, like I said, Scream had all these very, not so much no-name actors, because Neve Campbell was great on Party of Five. Courtney Cox was obviously doing Friends. David Arquette had a budding career at this point. Rose McGowan, probably one of the biggest actresses of the 90s. Skeet Ulrich, not too much going there. It's crazy. I think now he's pretty much known for Riverdale. Matthew Lillard, great voice actor, ended up being really well known for the movie Scooby-Doo and his role as Shaggy. But other than that, he never really did like a particular genre like over and over. I mean, he did She's All That. He did Summer Catch. Did a lot of movies with Freddie Prinze Jr. Come to think of it, it's a little cool to think about. But yeah, I mean, yeah, a lot of these people, there just weren't horror movie people. Courtney Cox, I want to say, is the biggest one because at the time she was doing Friends, so she's highly known as Monica. So then she gets lumped into this new character of being a complete douche. I mean, Gail Weathers is horrible. She gets punched in the face by Sydney. I mean, it's a far stretch away from who she's playing on Friends. I think from what I heard was that she chose this role because of that. She wanted to get away from that Friends persona, so she took this job. And then, I mean, lastly, I want to talk about Drew Barrymore. So Drew Barrymore, the biggest name aside from Courtney Cox at the time, I believe she had a scheduling conflict already. And yeah, I think she was already slated to be the first one to get axed at the very beginning. So that didn't help. And so this is where the first part, like, of the movie, like, runs into problems. Is that Wes Craven made that scene where she gets fucking gutted so much worse that they were giving it an NC-17. And so they had to cut it. They had to make it a little bit better. And so, yeah, I mean, this movie had the biggest star at the time, aside from Courtney Cox, just getting murdered viciously. Like, I remember seeing that death as a kid. I'm like, oh, Jesus. Oh, God, I get it. She's dead. Jeez, bro, calm down. And so, yeah, like, it's pretty surprising to see that, and then to look back on it now that was so risky, kind of like how it was in Psycho when they killed off the biggest actress in the movie at the very beginning. And then you get to see a rising star in Neve Campbell. And it's crazy because she didn't do anything after this. Like, nothing really, like, that stands out in your head. I mean, this is it, man. Like, this is really what she's known for. This and Party of Five. Matthew Lillard, poor guy, got typecasted, but you know what, man? He's had a good career. I've liked a lot of his movies. All power to him. Skeet Ulrich, I think is the funniest casting because leave it to Wes Craven to hire a guy who looks exactly like 1980s Johnny Depp. Because he had Johnny Depp in Nightmare on Elm Street, so why not get his look-alike for Scream? And for me, this movie always hold a special place in my heart. It will always be a Halloween movie for me because it has that Halloween spirit. Halloween is this dark, brooding holiday, and this movie's dark, brooding, filled with teen angst. So I fucking love this movie. If you're looking for horror movies to watch, especially classic ones at this point, I'd gladly recommend it. It takes you back to a simpler time when it wasn't a fucking demon that was trying to get you, or some psycho that puts you in a trap and basically says, "Good luck, dickbag. You're not gonna make it." So yeah, like, this movie brings you back to a simpler time where there's a dude with a knife who's gonna fucking kill you. And that does it for me. I'm simple. What can I say? So everybody, this is the ending of my little tribute to one of the best slasher films that I would rank in my top 5. Please check us out, therollback.net. We have written reviews. We also have our link tree there that takes you to Spotify, iTunes, Google, YouTube, where all of our recorded podcasts are being. We put out podcasts every Wednesday and Saturday. I'm going to be trying to put out at least a couple on Wednesday and then next Wednesday. It's going to be another horror film. Just can't figure out which one it is. I'm having trouble figuring that one out. It might be the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. The only remake that I say dare beats the original. So yeah, look out for that coming Wednesday. I'm also putting out Clerks 2 podcast with Eddie. Kind of wrapping up the Kevin Smith universe. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm Fernando, president of the Rollback. Eat me, Eddie. And this is the Wednesday Rewind. Let's cut it. Watch out for the knife behind the shower.